The CDL 2020 thread on Reddit has caused a lot of confusion with a number of questions that no one seems to have the answers to. Fortunately, I sat down with my buddy Andy, who has a lot of contenders and open experience in Overwatch with myself, to sit down and answer and alleviate some of your worries about what you're wondering about for CDL in 2020. Coming right up. What's up, COD fans? Welcome back. I've got a special guest this time, a good buddy and a good co-caster, Andy Panda Nekrich, joining me this evening, as we're going to be talking about all of the stuff that's been going on with the Rostermania page, the Reddit thread when it comes down to the CDL in this video specifically, and then in another one we'll be talking about the path to pro and what we should expect for that. But first and foremost, just breaking down the post as a whole, team rosters, 5v5, console. Does not say which console, but we know for sure what we're getting format-wise as far as players. We're going to see 10 players in the field again. We're going to see them with controllers. That's about as much as we know so far.
It's about all we got. That's all we got going for us. I mean, when you look at the CWL, it's just performed all on one console. It was all performed with a controller.
Right.
But it's stepping into the world now. I mean, you got games such as Apex Legends, Fortnite. When you got those games going against each other, well, you got pros on both sides of the world. You got keyboard, mouse, controllers. Yet some controller players are just stomping the yard with some of these players that are using keyboard and mouse, where you would think that it would end up going in the opposite manner. It's not so much the case too. You cannot outplay gameplay experience. You cannot outplay that certain macro heavy, and as well as the it's just the overall experience that you have in that setting that even certain controller players, if you've even playing since the World War games, that leading into this Modern Warfare, they're going to have up on most of these PC gamers.
And the other thing, too, that when we say PC, I don't think we could ever expect that the competitive environment will be purely PC, mouse, and keyboard. If we see PCs introduced, which a lot of the speculation has been kind of giving forward to, it's a simple fact that you'll plug a controller into a PC because you can do more on the competitive end when it comes to having a PC behind you. You can have client saves when it comes to, like, you know, restoring different parts. If you have a crash that happens, you have more of ability to pause, things like that. And obviously there's, you know, considerations as far as input lag and things like that as well. But we do know it's going to be 5v5. We do know it's going to be console. Beyond that, though, we also know as far as the roster size, it'll be up to 7 to 10 maximum. But before we dig into that, I want to go to format things, specifically talking about mid-series subs, because there's been a lot of people having their opinions on, well, if I've got 10 players on my roster, why can't I just farm these 5 players to be search and destroy guys and just sub them in for search and destroy? We don't anticipate that it's actually going to work like that. As far as what we've seen in the Overwatch League, I'm kind of more interested to see as far as how we're able to compare what we see there versus what we're able to expect in COD. Because in Overwatch, it's a lot more particular as far as which heroes are you best at, which different metas are you best at, are you better at hit scan characters versus non-hit scan characters when it comes to DPS. We're not expecting to see something like that in Call of Duty, though.
Maybe, maybe not, but you never really know because of the gunplay that could be coming through. Like you already said, you could have search and destroy professionals walking in at the same time, and I think that's one of the better parts to look at it as well. There are certain players even in the Overwatch League that are better on pure escort. There are players that are better on just pure control. Take NYXL, for example. You got Pine that even at the end of last season came in just specifically for control, just to play McCree. But then he got subbed out for a multitude of other players. There's all those specialists that you have to put into consideration. Where you see a full roster swap coming through just for a single map, not so much, because you don't want to be messing with the team's dynamic in such a manner, and you don't want to be having the core roster be cold-handed when they go back up onto the stage either. That's what you have to be concerned with. For the roster size alone, you're probably not going to see whole swaps across the board unless the series is already clinched. And then you're able to bring on a certain members that don't necessarily have stage time,
experience,
that don't necessarily have that experience under the pressure, like you were saying. And that's what you have to kind of speculate in a way too. And that's what this all is. It's just pure speculation. You might see a specialist come in here and there, but not full swaps across the board.
That's kind of what my base of expectation is going to be. If we were to put it in, like, if there were mid-series subs for this game specifically, let's just say Simp is only good at using a sniper rifle. We know it's not the case, but let's just put it in the world of possibilities. He's only good with a sniper rifle. You have Arsenal S&D coming up. You're going to put in Simp to play just for that Arsenal S&D. That's kind of the scenario, at least that I expect that we're going to see when it comes to mid-series series swaps. We're not going to be seeing full cell changes like you mentioned, because let's be candid, the starting 5 players are going to be your best 5 players. And at the current moment, you can't see a roster out there that's going to be made of 10 solid players all the way through and through, where you can make like, all right, this team's only going to worry about playing Search and Destroy. This team's only going to worry about playing Hardpoint. We'll coach them separately. That's just not the way it's going to work.
It'd be impressive. I mean,
it would be very impressive.
It'd be very impressive. We just, we got like, even using like CWO, for example, just like, oh, we're bringing in this whole roster for Search and Destroy. And then we immediately go to Hardpoint. And now we're going to bring in these 5 individuals to be playing this map. And although like you can even compare it to, say, the Seoul Dynasty would be the only team that in our 2019 season of the Overwatch League that showed even such an example of doing so. Well, it didn't really work out for them.
100%. And again, we mentioned it. We'll bring it up a little depth here. Roster size will be a minimum 7 players, up to 10 at max. And again, it just depends on whatever the org wants to pay out as far as that goes. But in specific, talking about the roster size was the addition of 2-way contracts. You can have up to 4 players of your potential 10 on a 2-way contract, 2 of which can be playing in the path to pro at a time. So I want to talk about what does this mean when it comes down to 2-way contracts as a whole, and as far as how we expect that to kind of work when it comes to the comparison between how we see it in Overwatch versus how we could expect to see it in Call of Duty.
2-way contracts kind of, they almost speak for themselves. You have an opportunity to both play for the team at the top of the ladder, which is in the professional setting. And then you have, for us in Overwatch, it's called Tier 2 contenders. And you have these 2-way contracted players that have only a set amount of games that they can play here for Call of Duty. Just to echo the point, they only have 2 games that they can be playing in the Path to Pro at a time. Versus playing
2 players at a time.
2 players, excuse me. Yeah. That can end up, I can only imagine playing a set amount of games in the professional setting that would then it probably hold them back to going back down to what you can consider tier 2.
Right.
In the Overwatch League, we've had a couple players kind of exemplify this in a way that we had a player named Elk step in for a player named Natuno for the Philadelphia Fusion. Elk being the 2-way contracted player that had they played 1 more game, they wouldn't have been able to go back down to Fusion University. You also have players such as Fusions for Boston Uprising who started playing too many games for Boston Uprising proper, their professional team, that then had to be able to come in full time as the main tank for the Boston Uprising. It was a whole debacle, and everything became a little bit more open at that point as well, that this player then had to be pushed up to the Overwatch League full time. Right. No longer a 2-way contracted player. We've had players fly to different countries to play for different academy teams too, such as the Guangzhou Charge. So I mean, when you're looking at these 2-way contracted players, how it's going to impact the Call of Duty scene, well, you can end up having a player that's maybe not of age, that's going to be on the roster, that could be a prodigy at 17, and say the 18-year-old is the mark that you want to be able to be at to play at that professional level. Well, until then, what are you going to have them do? Just sit there, ride the bench all the way through? Well, no. I mean, if you have a what could be considered a tier 2 team, then you could just have them stomp out inside such an area until they are ready to come up to that moment, because it could be in the middle of the season, and then you would need such a flexible player, just in this example alone. And then you would be able to bring that player through to then play at that professional level.
There's 2 different elements of this to kind of wrap everything you're saying up. The first is the fact that you cannot have, Karma, let's say he's the starter for whatever the Optic team would be. He cannot be playing on that also as well as the Academy team. There's relegations there, or regulations there, where you can only play a certain number of Pro League teams before you can no longer play 2-way contract. The best way that I could explain as far as how we're going to see this being used is think of the EU Cadets team, where it had Celium, Simp, and Illy on it all before they were all of age. They were playing through all of the 2Ks and GBs and the Pro Downs and things like that. You're going to be seeing this mostly utilized for pro teams that also have academy teams. You're not going to be seeing a pro player like, for instance, Karma. He's not going to be playing for whatever his pro league team is and also RBL Esports in the tier 2. No, he'll be playing for his main team, and then he'll also be contracted to also be playing in the academy. It just comes down to A, how much of a farm system do you want to build for this? And B, if you have a player who's not playing as well, can you send them to lower quality, environments to try to regroup that? The best example I could think of is that EU Cadets scenario, where you do have players that are technically underage, not able to play for the professional league, but want to kind of groom their competitive success. You do it through your academy system while still holding on to the contractual rights to that player, so they can't be picked up by another organization. So the best way,
once the player reaches the experience level, then you you have
Right.
the open opportunity just to bring them right back up too, because they may not have that LAN experience that you want them to have before bringing them into professional setting, because that pressure, I mean, it's heavy. It's heavy.
Yeah. It's a prodigy farm system. You're finding a guy that
Yeah.
you think he's going to fit in our system well. We think, let's bring him in. We'll put him on a 2-way contract, place him with our academy team. We like what you're offering. Back up to the pro team. That's kind of how that works. You're just under contract by the pro team to play for both of those worlds. So that's the best way of kind of explaining the 2-way contract system. You're not going to be seeing mainstay players in the professional league also playing in the academy. That just won't happen. Speaking of things, though, salary-wise, just really quickly as we want to wrap this one up, minimum salary $50K seems about right. Let's be honest. People are out there saying, well, your star players are going to get paid more. Yeah, probably will, but let's not get it too out of hand here, because I believe it's like a $1.5 million salary cap for everybody. So you're not going to be seeing outlandish contracts coming through. And be honest, $50K plus housing, plus benefits, plus retirement, pretty damn good.
I mean, yeah, you look at the stipends that they'll probably end up getting on that contract too,
Yes.
like groceries, the housing, like you already mentioned, team activities that you're going to be taking part in, the flights, everything that goes into being a pro player. That $50K salary that you get just for your own personal funds, that's pretty damn
Pretty
good.
damn cool.
It's pretty damn awesome. And when you think that that's too low, I'm sorry, it's really not. I mean, at a minimum $50K salary for even that 2-way contracted player that may even be, say, a 19-year-old player that's just there as a simple mind that comes in to play that one game of search and destroy.
Or use that one
I mean,
weapon. Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. I'm taking that with a smile on my damn face. Are you kidding me? That's pretty good. That's pretty good. And to be able to offer that to a multitude of players for different scenarios, such as the one that I listed, or even a player that's 2-way contracted but's not playing, but it's only in development as well. I mean, yeah, all these players would probably be jumping at the bits just to get that contract. That's not that little money at all. That's actually really, really good when you lay it all out. Just again, like the housing, the stipends, food, flights, travel, everything, plus 50K. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, you're banking it. It's kind of like how the president, everyone says, why does the president get paid more? Well, he doesn't have to pay for anything. So he just puts that straight in the bank account. So speaking of player and team housing, we'll get away from the political side of this conversation. Just briefly, a lot of people are flipping out. Like Hastro went out and said that all players playing for the Team Envy Dallas team will be living in the team house. Okay, let's calm down a little bit, because to be fair, there will likely be team facilities with local living. Again, it's not like, the Boston Red Sox don't live at Fenway Park, okay? They live nearby and they travel in to practice. A lot of the same situations are there, but we will expect to still see team houses exist as we have in Overwatch League. Before that, they are going to be going to the homestand thing. It's been a lot of players just in apartments in LA because that's where everything's being played from. We don't know exactly how the homestands are going to work as far as Call of Duty goes, but you figure your base of operations will be near whatever city that you are assigned to.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's something that's coming around in the 2020 season, even for the Overwatch League too. I mean, the localization is going to be massive. I mean, sure,
Right.
we've had all these teams that represent London, New York, here in Washington D.C., all the way over to Seoul, Korea, and Shanghai, China. You have so many wonderful opportunities for players to not only be in the connection for their home city, but at the same time, it's not like you said, it's not like the Boston Red Sox or even the Carolina Panthers, for example. Like, it's not like they're walking down like in the middle of the 50-yard line and they just see Cam Newton like in his boxers, like eating a chocolate sundae. Like that's not how it's gonna be at all. I mean, like you're gonna have like your own personal living situation where you can then go to the facility to then be practicing with your team in such a scenario. Now, will a couple players probably be living together? Well, yeah. I mean, they're going to be spending a lot of time together. I can only imagine they'd probably be making friends with one another. But at the same time, the team house is a very open thing. There's only a select few teams, even in the Overwatch League, that have a full-on committed team house versus having the team living arrangements and then a facility that they go to practice in, whether it's in a house down the street or whether it's in an actual facility down the street, or say like a 30-minute drive down the highway. All of those things are definite opportunities.
And the other thing, a lot of people might bring up the Scump and the Slack situation. We, again, very publicly, they just bought houses. Those situations, again, can all be negotiated when it comes down to the simple fact that I live where I live. It's an online game. You don't have to show up to any specific place to get the same kind of practice. So very well could be that they're allowed to play remotely. It's not necessarily a guarantee. On top of that, again, as the note mentioned, it says that you do not have have to provide housing. Just give us a statement as far as how it's going to work if you do not provide housing for your teammates or your team and your players, whatever it happens to be. Last little bit on this video, not really much to talk about besides the fact that current contracts will and must be enforced. So buyouts from new organizations will have to happen at least, well, at most, rather, I should say. There is no set minimum as far as, you know, if a team wants to sell off a player. But at most, they can only ask for 100% of what their contract guarantees. So, for instance, whatever FaZe is paying Zuma, if FaZe doesn't buy into an org spot, he's on contract until who knows when. If a team wants to buy Zuma, you have to pay out his buyout, probably at 100%, whatever the asking cost is. Beyond that, though, if you do already have a spot in the Call of Duty League for 2020 and you're a current organization, you just essentially can change over the contract to change names. So that's like your Envy, your Splice, and then possibly your Optic and Immortals, depending on what's going on with that spot and those contracts as they were bought out. So interesting things. Again, that's mostly stuff on the first part of the CDL announcement. Andy, thank you for joining me. We'll be talking more on the Path to Pro coming up in our next video, so you're not going to want to miss it. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, ring the notification bell to know when it pops up. And until next time, hope you guys keep holding it down. Later. Bye-bye.